It's Mark and Pete.
Hello, and welcome to the show. More colourful conversations with Mark and Pete. This week, we're going to debate the key subject of, are we workaholics? Well, I know I am, but what about you listeners? It's amazing that over 1 million Britons will fail to take their annual leave this year. And what that means is they're throwing away over 6.5 million days of holiday. Well, that's an extraordinary amount of time. But is that really productive? Well, of course, this does actually build up a great opportunity for employers. Does that mean that employers are actually exploiting people in Britain? How does that relate to the rest of Europe? Well, with me today is clergyman Pete. So I'm going to ask him a simple question. Pete, are you actually working too hard at this moment in time?
At this time, I'm not really working at all. I'm sitting here talking to you.
Oh.
But I guess you could call it a job, but I work harder now than I have done in the past. For me, it's a question of enthusiasm. Depends what job I'm doing as to how enthusiastic I am about it. So I've done jobs in the past that, I did the work out of a sense of duty, sort of after all I'm being paid for it, But even though now I work harder than I have done, I wouldn't say that I'm a workaholic. It's a question of whether you can give it up. And my claim is that I can give it up whenever I like. I could stop working and I take time off. I take a full day off every week and I take my holidays, but not all of them. It would be true to say I don't take all my annual leave each year. I haven't done for years, but I do take some of it.
So you are one of those statistics.
I am a statistic. Yes. Now, I don't take all of it because, I'm concerned about getting the work done, and the sort of work I have means I need to be in certain places at certain times. So what that would mean is, although I can take time off, taking a full block of time off can be difficult. I have to arrange it such that I can take that time off, get people to cover for me with certain duties. And I guess that's the same in quite a few different jobs. Teaching, for example, if you take time off during term time, of course, then you have to get people to cover for you. But during the holidays you're taking, you're preparing for the next term. So in the end, you can end up not taking any holiday. And if you do take the holiday, you're not prepared enough. So it's not necessarily a case of being a workaholic. It can be the demands of the job. Simply to get the job done,
yes,
you need to work harder than is good for you. I could say, in that you're not taking enough downtime.
No, but of course there are consequences to this because we sort of, I think, probably feel as though we're compelled to finish the job, as you say, and we feel that maybe it's possible that, we're letting the employer down. But of course, the employer's winning, as I mentioned. It's actually sort of revealed that in a recent study that actually employers could literally earn hundreds of millions of what we call free working time. Well, that's all very well, but it's going to take its toll. So I've got a little poem which sort of sums up my view on the matter. It's called On the Treadmill. Do you suffer from a long working week? Do your weary bones ache and creak? Are you just a workaholic? Is your private time shambolic? Are you still clinging to the company computer? Still travelling through the weekend as a working commuter? Is there no salvation to your passion? Pursuing business like it's going out of fashion? Then take some advice when pressure is rife. Ditch your duties and get a life.
Yes, I think I got your message there.
Yes.
I mean that the idea of getting a life is an interesting one. In that by this you mean life outside of work. Usually, this is what's meant by it. You need a life outside of work. But if you really enjoy your work, your life, can pretty much be your work. But you still need to take rest time. So it's really a call to have a rounded life, to not just work. And I guess a workaholic, as I was saying earlier, is someone who just can't stop work. They have to keep going. So they wear themselves out because they're not taking enough time off. But just as big an issue can be you're perfectly well, you're enjoying your work life, you're not taking enough time off, so your family suffers, or
Exactly.
the people who you should be spending time with, your family, your friends, miss out on your presence. So they're the ones who suffer.
Well, this is true. And not only that, I think that it can also become an addiction. A good example is that with technology, of course, we can now go about our daily lives and carry our laptops, carry our mobiles. But, of course, what we can do is, of course, we can continue working on the go. It's easy to access data, whether that's through email, whether that's via the cloud. And it means actually you don't have to be fixed at a particular office base. You can be anywhere. And, of course, what that means is that the traditional 9 to 5 really has gone. Many people can access information because they're working for companies that are international. They may have people who, wherever you're based, working with colleagues in different parts of the world. And, of course, that means that you have to sort of operate virtually and 24 hours. But I'm going to ask you a simple question, because we've sort of put a little bit of emphasis on Britain. I mean, Britain is noted for perhaps working quite hard, but is that a perception or is that a reality? So I'm going to ask you a question. A recent survey.
Yeah.
This was conducted by the company Statista. Now, Statista was also doing a particular survey across a whole range of European countries. So I want to emphasize this is Europe, so it does put it in context. But who do you think, according to their survey, put in the longest working hours in Europe? Now, this is an average working week, okay?
Okay,
so this is the EU countries. So that's all
EU countries.
Yeah. Who do you think tops the poll?
Right, okay, so European Union countries.
Yeah.
Who tops the poll of workers doing the most hours per week?
The most hours, yes. The longest.
Now, is this an average?
On average.
On average.
On average,
okay.
yes.
On average, the longest hours per week. Well, first of all, I'm going to say, just possibly betraying a prejudice here, that it's not going to be the French. That's my first.
Well, I'm asking a question, so come on.
Yeah. So I'm going to say no, it's not them. I'm going to say that you, in your preamble to this little segment, was saying, Britain has a reputation for working hard. But actually, I think amongst European countries, it's rather the opposite. Possibly remembering the dark days of the 70s with so much striking going on. There's a perception
You're eluding the question.
British people are lazy.
I'm
sorry, I thought you said alluding to the question. Eluding the question. Yes, I am. I'm giving myself time to think. What I'm going to say is, I would say that the longest working week is by the Germans.
Well, interestingly
followed by the British.
Well,
I think the British are up there.
You're way off. Have another go.
So it's neither of those.
No.
Okay, right. Okay, if this calls for radical rethink, I'm going to do the opposite of what I think. And now many people think of Spanish and Hispanic people as being lazy. Now I know that that's not true from those I met. So I'm going to actually go for Spain itself and say they're the hardest working.
That's not a bad guess, because Spain had an average hour of 38 hours. That's 38 working hours.
That's an average of 38, okay.
Yeah, now, but I'm going to tell you that the top of the poll
go on.
Is Greece.
It's Greece. Yes. Now,
it's quite extraordinary.
I guess everyone will know the story
maybe
of our
sort of
listenership.
Busily working away, trying to cling on to every euro that they've got. And,
now, Greece are supposedly, because of being work shy, good for nothing, caused their own problems, financial problems that they're in at the moment.
Yes.
But it seems that, well, at least in terms of number of hours worked, that isn't the case. No. And in fact, as we've discussed in other shows here, it's more complicated than that, why they're in trouble. It's not really to do with individual Greek people being work shy. So I'm not overly surprised.
Well, let me just give you
as I say,
let me give you my reason
the
table, because it is quite remarkable.
Let me just say that my reason for saying not the French, apart from to get the joke in, because British people traditionally hate the French, but It wasn't because of a prejudice. It was because I had heard that that there were certain laws set in France that you couldn't work over a certain number of hours. So that was my reason for saying that. So I thought, so if you've got a limit, then it's going to be less. It's going to be less than that they actually work. Yes. So that's why I said the French. But,
I'm just getting some updates on statistics from our listeners that the French listeners have gone down.
No, well, they would have left by now.
I can't understand why. But
no, they would have left by now because they can't take it.
But the point being is that it's interesting that Greece tops the poll in terms of the longest working hours on average. Portugal is second with 39.3. Then it's Spain. France, ironically, is fourth.
You see, yes.
And then it's
by my own petard.
Then it's Italy. Then it's the UK. Then it's Ireland, and remarkably, then it's Germany, and then the Netherlands. In fact, the average EU is 37.2. Now, I think if you look at that, that's probably what we will probably expect as a Euro average. But of course, what it also does reflect that actually by simply putting in all of those hours isn't necessarily a reflection of productivity. Now, the reason I mention this is that it's quite interesting that Richard Branson, this is the chairman of the Virgin Group, he has a slightly different philosophy in that unlike some CEOs or chairmen or industry leaders, he takes the view that basically it's about getting the job done. It doesn't matter how many hours you put in. If you meet your goals and meet your targets, that's what matters. And that's quite an interesting way of looking at things. And in many ways, it does make a lot of sense. You don't necessarily have to think that you've been productive just because you've done 60 hours, maybe even more hours above the EU average. So it's interesting that he takes that type of approach with a lot of his workforce. Yes. But I guess the question is, when it comes to the clergy, for example, what's the expectation in terms of the number of hours? My perception would be it's really 24 hours. If somebody comes to you with requiring spiritual guidance, what do you do?
Well, I mean, of course, that requires that you, as a professional, set limits, on the times of day you can be approached, except for in absolute dire emergency. So you need to get people to respect your private space. And that's just a method of working. And that's the same in quite a few different jobs. For example, counselling. Counsellors will need to set boundaries on how much they get involved in people's private lives. And the same thing is true of the clergy. The problem for a clergyman or woman is that they will have certain expectations put on them by disparate groups within the community, which are not the same. And therefore, if you were to add up all the different expectations, you'd end up with about 5 or 6 people needed to do the job.
Yes.
And in the end, because there are no set criteria, although the sort of guidelines, I guess, from the church and the diocese, there are only guidelines. You get to decide yourself where you put the emphasis. So you're going to disappoint people. Or you work yourself into the ground doing a little bit for everyone and doing everything badly.
Yes.
And this contributes to the high stress levels. And I would say having more fixed criteria, specific criteria on what you're expected to do, what aims you have, would help many people in their role as clergyman. But of course, people are different. For me, that would be terrible. I like to be able to think and set my own goals and then try and achieve them. And for that reason, it's a good job for me, and it's why I'm working harder at this than I have at other jobs that I've done.
So what would the Bible say about being able to focus on putting your priorities in your life and your work-life balance?
Well, the thing is that the Bible talks about taking a day off a week in the Ten Commandments. It's there right in the Ten Commandments that you take off a day a week. But in saying that, it starts by saying 6 days you shall labour, and then goes on to take, you say, one in 7 off. And you're meant to take the 1 day in 7 off to rest with your family, and it mentions your whole household. It doesn't actually mention that this is for the purpose of worshipping God. Although you're told to worship God, the purpose of the whole day off is for rest.
Yes.
And so you're expected to take a specified, full day off to rest and be with your family and friends. Specifically, it talks about your family, your household. It was an idea in the Bible, but that would included, people that you knew who happened to be around with you, not just your close family. So that's expected. And if we don't do that, then we're in trouble. And I think that's where the problems of workaholism do arise. But note that it does say 6 days you shall labour. And there's not even the idea of a 2-day weekend. And the idea that we're entitled to 2 full days off a week is an idea that's grown up with the acceptance of the weekend. That's not necessarily the case.
Yeah.
And in my job, of course, it's expected to have 1 day off, not 2 days off a week. And so it's more that it's more of having a balance, as you were saying, not of having a need for lots and lots of leisure. It's that you need a balance, which is not 50-50 or anything like that. We're meant to spend quite a bit of time working, getting stuff done. And the emphasis in the Bible is that we work in order to be productive. 2 Thessalonians 3 verse 10 says, if anyone is not willing to work, let him not eat. And he was talking, in this, Apostle Paul, talking in this passage, he's actually talking about preachers.
Right.
If they don't get their work done, then don't pay them. Now, they were paid in kind in those days. They were being given stuff to eat, being given accommodation. Colossians 3 verse 23 says, whatever you do, work heartily as for the Lord and not for men. That gets to the heart of it. Yes, you're meant to work for 6 days a week, but you must take a day off. But when you do work, get your productivity up. Work heartily. Do it well.
Yes. Well, no, that's good. That's good advice. And in fact, a lot of the statistics that I've been talking about have actually come from various sources, one of which I couldn't help but find amusing. This was from Bob Atkinson, a quote from travel expert Travel Supermarket. And it was starting off quite well until he took a little twist. He said, it's worrying to see that so many Brits are still failing to make the most of their annual leave. But guess what? It's not too late to do something about it. There is still time to firm up your plans and book a holiday to give yourself a well-earned break before the year ends.
Yes.
Well, there's the entrepreneur, busily and continually working away.
Working hard to get people to rest, yes. Great guy.
Exactly. So with that, look, I know that we busily got to get our lives together and perhaps even just get a life, maybe. So listeners, what do you think about working too hard? Are you working too hard? I know our production crew could possibly do with some time off. So why not drop us a line on www.markandpete.com and let us know what you think. Should we be working less, or should we actually be working even harder? Well, we'd love to hear from you. So join us again next time for more colourful conversations with Mark and Pete.